Okay, so we have a fantastic lineup of speakers, and I want to thank everyone, my colleagues, for being here, for speaking to you today, and my colleagues that helped organizing this webinar. So my colleague Rich Burgle from North Carolina Zoo, who is our SMART Steering Committee Chair, will introduce today's session, giving you an overview of SMART and the SMART Partnership, and then we're going to have a session on SMART Desktop by Drew Cronin, also from North Carolina Zoo, who is our SMART Technology Council Chair, and Julian Godfrey from RTO Conservation. That will be followed by a session on SMART Mobile from Alex Wyatt from WWF, who is our SMART Patrol Task Force lead. That will then be followed by a session on SMART Connect, and that will be presented by Oliver Adolf, who is our Smart Tech Operations lead, and Tony Linen from WCS, Smart Training lead, followed by a very cool new integration with Connect, if you're using Connect, with Global Forest Watch from Leading To from WCS and the Smart Integration Task Force lead. Then we have the questions and answer session, and we'll hear a bit more about the resources that are available to all of you from my colleague Anthony Dancer from ZSL, who is our Chief Capacity Officer. And then I want to thank my colleague Natalia, who is here, and she's helped with all the logistics, and she's going to be assisting us all in the chat. So if you have any specific questions, want to follow up, just ping her through the chat. Okay, so quick recap on the agenda for today: overview of SMART 7, followed by SMART Desktop, followed by SMART Mobile, SMART Connect, and the integration with Global Forest Watch, and then resources and Q&A. Great. So I'm going to stop sharing. Over to you now, Rich, to do the SMART overview.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be joined, or good morning for me, maybe afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. It's really a pleasure to see so many people on the webinar and to see so much interest in SMART 7. This is probably redundant for a lot of people, maybe everybody on this call, but just giving you a little bit of background on where SMART came from now that we are 11 years into our collective SMART journey. As everybody knows, we're living in a time where biodiversity is being lost at an unprecedented scale. There's a huge demand for all kinds of wildlife products globally. And for those of us working on the conservation side of things, there often aren't all the resources that we would like for implementing conservation solutions. And that's where SMART came from. Now, 12 years ago, a group of conservation organizations came together to help to develop tools that could allow conservation activities to be more efficient and effective. So to be able to collect information and then utilize that information in the context of initially protected areas, but now a much broader set of contexts in which we all work. And so that's where the SMART software and the SMART approach to doing conservation came from. Our goal is really to empower people like all of you on the call to do conservation better, and to provide you with tools to collect, analyze, and most importantly, act on data that are relevant for the conservation of wildlife and biodiversity in general. And in doing this, we really want to respond to the needs of conservationists and SMART users at all levels. This isn't just a tool for people sitting in the headquarters. This isn't just a tool for researchers. This should be a tool for everybody who is involved in the practice of conservation. So for staff working on the ground in the field, SMART makes, as I hope you have all seen, SMART makes it easier to collect information, makes it easier to navigate, makes it easier to generate the information that's so important for planning conservation activities. For protected area managers, SMART provides information that's required for managing staff, for making decisions about conservation strategies and activities. And then at the national level, data feeding from multiple different protected areas allows national authorities to make policy decisions that then support the work of those in protected areas and in the field. And increasingly, SMART is also being used by communities. While it was originally developed as a protected area management tool, the flexibility of SMART is allowing people around the world to collect data to support the management of natural resources that are under their control. So as I said, while SMART was originally conceived of as a law enforcement monitoring tool, the flexibility of the platform and the need for this kind of information has caused it to be used in a huge variety of different contexts and different applications that those of us who were involved at SMART at the beginning didn't even consider. So certainly, things like law enforcement, threat assessment, and staff evaluation were intended as ways that we imagine people would use SMART. But things like looking at community-based natural resource management, looking at human-wildlife conflict, and increasingly things like infrastructure maintenance were not things that we intended SMART to be used for, but now are kind of the part and parcel of SMART use around the world. And I think as a result of both the need for these kinds of tools and the flexibility of the platform, we've seen a really remarkable growth in the use of SMART. Everybody who's on this webinar is part of a huge network of conservation professionals who are using SMART to improve the practice of conservation. We're currently at over 1,200 sites globally, more than 80 different countries. 21 different countries have adopted SMART as the national standard for collecting, monitoring data in protected areas. And this is probably a huge underestimate. Every time I get on a call with somebody or read a post on the forum or something like that, I find out about new places that are using SMART that those of us who are part of the partnership weren't even aware of. So this is a little bit of a plug for SMART for you to please submit your site to the website. On the SMART website, smartconservationtools.org, you can let us know where you're using SMART, what you're using it for, so that we can really understand what the global footprint of SMART is, and also represent the excellent work that you are all doing. So as I said at the beginning, SMART has been around for a while now. SMART was initially conceived of back in 2011, and the first release of the software, a very early version of the software, was in 2012. It's remarkable how both the software and the global community using SMART has grown over those years. In that first year, I think there were maybe 25 or 30 sites around the world who were using it. There was no mobile component, so you had to manually enter in the data from paper data sheets. GPS coordinates were imported from Garmin and other type GPS units. And so, as you can see from this timeline, there's really been a remarkable expansion of both what you can do with the software and the people who are using it. And this is a reflection, I think, of the value that SMART is providing to the global conservation community. But enough about the background, enough about the SMART partnership. Everybody's here to learn about SMART 7. I'll just give a very brief overview of some of the really exciting features that are coming in this latest version of 7 of SMART. In SMART 7, there is a new user interface, which will make it a lot easier to access some of the key functions that everybody, I'm sure, is using on a regular basis. We've got a new mode with which you can review patrol data that makes it a lot easier to see everything all at once. This is probably drilling down into the details too much for my presentation, but we've got things like multi-select attributes. That's something that I've wanted for many, many years. So it's cool to see that implemented, the ability to create custom patrol metadata, and a host of over 40 new features just in desktop. In mobile, we have a lot more flexibility for creating custom configurable models, the ability to enter data conditionally. So if you choose one thing, you get the one thing. If you choose another thing, you get another thing. A library of over 1,000 icons, which makes it a lot easier to intuitively enter data. And something that's been asked for a long time, support for Apple mobile devices. In Connect, the biggest thing that is kind of going public, but many of you have been using for a long time now, is Smart Connect as a service. This is our free cloud hosting service that we provide to the conservation community, providing you with a cloud server to run SMART online, free of charge, supported by the SMART partnership. There's also a number of technical improvements to Connect, which should make the experience of using Connect much more seamless. And then, importantly, something that we've been focusing within the SMART partnership for the last several years is not software, but capacity building. And so we have a broad suite of new training materials, manuals, videos, an upcoming online learning platform, in-person training opportunities, in order to not just build the software tool itself, but build the capacity of the global SMART community to use it as effectively as possible. And while we're talking about the recent release of SMART 7, rest assured that SMART 8 is in development right now, and that will be coming your way in the not too distant future. And while the focus of this webinar is going to be on SMART software and all the new functionality, I think it's important to highlight the SMART community, of which all of you are a part. The SMART community has been integral to the development of the software from the beginning, and particularly with the development of 7. Many, or actually all, of the features that are present in 7 are the direct result of requests from the SMART community. We really do want to try to meet the needs of SMART users. The software, the whole point of the software is to provide all of you with the tools that you need to do your jobs to conserve biodiversity better. So everything that you'll be hearing about today came directly from the SMART community, and moving forward, please continue to engage with your colleagues online, via email, et cetera, and let us know how you're using SMART, what you would like to see in the software. Please do join the online forum, participate in the online forum. Even though sometimes it seems like a lot of the messages are, here is this problem that I have, it's really valuable to be, number one, be able to ask those questions, and then number two, to learn from your colleagues. I've said to many people that when I realized SMART was really gaining traction was when people on the forum who I didn't know were asking questions that I didn't know how to do, and people who I also didn't know were replying, explaining how to do that thing that I didn't know how to do. So there's a really, I mean, I just asked a question on the forum myself the other day that somebody answered. So it's a really valuable source of information, and in addition to reading it, and please participate. Please share your knowledge with your colleagues. The forum is just one way to get involved. We're always looking for people to help with SMART. SMART is entirely run by volunteers, with the exception of Monica, the program manager. So your experience, your expertise with SMART, your knowledge of what the conservation world needs is really important, and can really help to contribute to the future of SMART. So if you're interested in looking at getting involved, please contact us either through the forum or through the email that's listed on the website, and help us to build the next several generations of SMART. So thanks to all of you who have helped to build SMART, from people who've made suggestions for the software, to our developers who are the ones who have made a lot of this possible, and who are, while we pay them to develop SMART, have really bought into to what SMART is and what it provides for the global conservation community. And to all my co-presenters today, who will be giving you the details of what SMART is, or what SMART 7 is all about. So thanks for joining us, and looking forward to further engagement on SMART 7. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Rich. That was perfect timing and lots of great messages there. Yes, please update our site. Just so important to know where SMART is being used all over the world to help us create this amazing network of users. And yes, join the community forum. I've pasted links in the chat. Also, there are ways that you can join our many task forces. I also have a link in the chat for that. Okay, so next we're going to hear from Julian and Drew about what are the new features in SMART 7 for desktop. Thank you.
So hello everyone, my name is Julian Godfrey, Protected Area Management Consultant from RTO Conservation, and Drew and I are just going to go through the new features, well, some of the key new features that you can see on the actual desktop software of the SMART suite of tools. We are going to cover a few things that cross over into mobile and connect, but you'll get more detail on those from some of the other presenters. We're just going to cover the side that you'll sort of see on the actual desktop software. So the first thing you might notice when opening up SMART 7, as Rich mentioned, is a brand new interface, the sort of biggest update to the interface ever. It's a lot cleaner, a lot simpler. A lot of the huge number of shortcuts and buttons at the top there are gone. They were a bit confusing and people weren't using them, and we're left with the key shortcuts that really take you to the perspectives. So it's a lot simpler and easier to navigate and get to where you want. And as you install more plugins, you'll just see those plugins appear as big, bright, and easy to use buttons up at the top there. So here we've got the sensor and the entity and the incident plugins all alongside there. So one of the first major new features here is the polygonal queries. So we're now able to, in the queries, develop queries that can focus on a specific geographical area. Now, you could do this before, of course, if you happen to have the right polygon already in a layer, in a shapefile in your conservation area boundaries. But now you don't need to do that anymore. You can just decide on the fly that you want to see all of the observations inside or outside a particular area. You'll just find the new custom area filter inside your area filters in the queries, and this will work for the main spatial ones, so the observation queries, the incident queries, patrol queries. And using this new tool, you can just click to create the polygon that you want. And then when you run your query, you'll be able to include everything in there, or everything that's not in there, depending on which operator you're using. Now, the next feature we're going to look at is the patrol review screens. This is a really cool new feature that appears as a tab inside of the patrol perspective. So if you've got a patrol open, you'll find at the bottom there on your summaries tab, you've got right at the end the new review tab. And this opens a screen that allows you to see some of the key metadata in context alongside your patrol route, but also really handy features. You can cycle through your different days of data and cycle through your observations. And if you happen to have any attachments or photos associated, you'll see them pop up at the bottom there. So this is envisioned as a great tool for presenting the results of a patrol, or for patrol debriefs, so that teams and managers can go through in fine detail exactly what happened on the patrol. The next thing we're going to look at is a very simple but very effective, at least in my eyes anyway, improvement to the attachments, because we can now add attachments directly to an observation, whereas previously they were only attached to a waypoint. So if you have a waypoint where you have more than one observation, maybe you have one observation of a firearm that was seized and another one of the human that was arrested, Now we can associate the image of the firearm directly to the observation of weapon seized, and the image of the person directly to the observation of human seized. And this is particularly key now because of the improved ability to query and report on attachments. Now we can associate those directly with the kind of observation that it was. This hasn't removed the ability to add attachments to waypoints. We can still do that if we want to, if it's an attachment that's more relevant to the whole waypoint. But if we want it directly attached to an observation, we can do that now. So the next feature that's been added is this information tool. So this is a little button that you'll find in the map navigation tools on the right-hand side of the map. But you'll only find this in the query maps and in the patrol maps. But once you've selected this, you can then click on any feature that you've got in your map and it will give you more information. Now you can use this for polygons or lines on your actual map layers. But really what it's useful for is being able to click on observations, because then a new tab will open up at the bottom, showing you plenty of detail on that specific waypoint. So you'll then have patrol details, but you'll also have all of your attributes. So say you've run a query looking at lion carcasses, you can now just have a click and you'll be able to see age of carcass, cause of death, whatever attributes you happen to have associated with it. And next, there are a few upgrades to the way, to the flexibility in the way that Smart Mobile pushes data to the cloud. So we can configure in the desktop how the Smart Mobile app is going to behave. So we can turn off all of the data being sent to Connect if we want to, so that we're gonna have to bring your device back in. Or we can turn off automatic data upload so that the export data button needs to be pushed in order to send that data to the cloud. Or we can set it up on a timer. So every 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, we can have that set up. So depending on how you want to get your data pushed, maybe at the end of each patrol, at the end of each day, they press a button, or do you want it to appear every hour? Next is the new multi-list attribute, which I agree with Rich is very exciting. So this is an entirely new type of attribute that will appear on your drop-down list of potential types when you're creating a new attribute. And it will appear as a list of predefined items, just like a list, but now you can tick multiple options on it, the sort of checkbox. So this was sort of possible before when you had the multi-select option, but really that was creating several different observations that differed only in what you clicked in the list, whereas this is actually a whole new attribute type. It's obviously very useful because not everything in a list can only be one. If you're already using the multi-select feature and you do have a list where you're taking advantage of that, there's a really handy tool here that actually allows you to go to an existing list in your data model and convert it to the new type of attribute, the multi-list. So you can sort of retrofit your existing data model to start using this new attribute without deleting the old one and creating a new one. So that should be a pretty useful new feature as well. Next, there's the conservation area size report. So this is just something that can be found in your file and settings, and this is going to give you a quick report on the amount of data that is being held in the database and where that data is being stored, how much is in your maps, your patrols, in the reports. And this is particularly key for those that are managing a database with Connect, because it's going to help you keep on top of how much data it's going to take to download and upload conservation areas. And if you scroll down here, I can't because it's a screenshot, there's a link there that will give you information on the best ways to keep your conservation area from getting too bloated with too much in it. So this should help cut down on the amount of server costs and the amount of time spent backing up. And next, there's been some improvements to the way data models are imported and exported. So now when you select to export a data model, you're going to be given this question, which is going to ask whether or not you want to include icons in your export. So if you've been setting up icons in the actual data model and not the configurable data model, then when you export your data model, you can choose to include all of those. And if anyone here has gone through an entire data model and added all the icons for every attribute and observation, you're going to understand quite how much time this will save. So when the receiving conservation area imports, it will bring in all the icons as well. And the file actually includes the icons themselves, so it doesn't matter if those don't exist in the other database. This does obviously increase the file size, but it's not too bad. And the second change to the data model import and export feature is a great new feature, which allows you to simply export individual translations, which is very handy. Again, it's very time consuming to go through data models and add a local translation. But if you have two conservation areas that share a data model and you've taken the time to translate it into a key language, you can now just export that translation and it'll be received on the other end. Another big time saver. And then we have another exciting new feature, which is the routes. So we can create and save routes inside the desktop application that will then be pushed to Smart Mobile and be followed in the team. So they'll be able to see and track these. I think you'll get more detail on this from one of the other presenters. But here we are creating a circular route that we would like our field team to try and follow. But we could also create target points as well instead of routes, so we can set specific locations instead of an actual track. And this will really help to connect the team's planning patrols with the teams in the fields. And I will just hand over to Drew now for a few more of these features.
Great, thank you, Julian. Can you go ahead and switch to the next slide? My name is Drew Cronin. I'm from the North Carolina Zoo. I'm going to run through some features as well. And just one thing I wanted to add that we haven't, I don't think Julian mentioned, but we fully expect that you can't learn all these things from a webinar. So we've put links to where these things are in the technical manual or the advanced reporting manual in all of these slides, and we can make these slides available as well. So hopefully you can see this, you can be inspired by it, and then you can take it and tailor your own site with the information we've provided. Moving forward, so one of the really cool features with Smart Mobile, which I think will be covered in the mobile section as well, is there's a lot of flexibility, and so one of the great new features is the ability to create custom base maps. Now you could do this in the past. You could have custom base maps, offline base maps in with CyberTracker, but there's a lot more flexibility, a lot more customization possible with Smart Mobile. And I'm just showing the interface here on the left. You can create your base map in desktop, and then you can associate that with a specific mobile package. And I'm going to speak about mobile packages in a few slides. So let's say you have a really big area and you want to have a small offline base map for a quarter of that area for one mobile package and another quarter of that area for another mobile package. You can do that sort of customization here, and you don't have to create a separate file offline and bring those in. You can do that all within Smart Desktop, and the flexibility that provides on the base maps and the sort of ease of customization when you're creating potentially multiple packages for the same conservation area is really improved. It's a great new feature. And again, you can see this when you're going through the setup of a mobile package, which you'll see in a few slides. Next slide. Another really cool new feature is the ability to record distance and bearing, and also to record the observer. And so this actually came out of folks in using Smart in the marine context, because they were going on a boat patrol and they were recording let's say illegal fishing at 30 degrees off the side of their boat. But a kilometer and a half away, right? And so the important the important data point is where that illegal fishing took place, because maybe that is inside an exclusive no fish zone or no take zone, right? And so they were very interested in capturing not only their patrol tracks and where they were, but where the observation in the field was. And so that's been added now. You would set this up in your field data options. And this is also really relevant as well for anybody who's doing animal monitoring or wildlife monitoring, because you might, if you're doing density calculations, you'll want to know where you are in relation to your survey track, as well as where the animal you're observing is. So yeah, you can just set that up here in the field data options. As well, you can record the observer for every waypoint or every incident. And what that does, that allows you to, if there's a big team and the patrol leader or the survey leader is person A, but in the field person B starts collecting the data, you can still record who's specifically recording the information, and that will allow greater detail or greater sort of understanding of who's collecting the data. And if you need to interrogate it further when they come back, you can say, okay, well, I know that Steve collected the data. I need to follow up with Steve on what he specifically recorded to make sure it's recorded accurately. And again, you can see this in the technical training manual. Go ahead, Julian. Julian mentioned this earlier, but we also have the ability to do custom patrol attributes. I know this is really exciting. There's a lot of people have requested this feature, and you can see the nice illustration here for dog name that Julian put together. But this allows you to go past just team, station, and mandate. You can set these custom patrol attributes in desktop. They push out to mobile. And then when you're in the field, you record that information. When you come back from the field, you can then query those data as well. Can you go to the next slide? So just like any of the other patrol filters, you can use those custom patrol attributes in the queries. And I know this is really important for a lot of places that maybe don't use stations or maybe don't have patrol teams. And so there's other ways that they're subsetting their patrol efforts or their survey efforts, and so they wanted to frame it in a different way. And so this is a really great feature. There are most of the same attribute types as in the data model. I think I'm not sure about the multi-list, but there should be there's a lot of flexibility there to add custom attributes, and that's been a real improvement. And that one thing to sort of watch this space for is that we're going to continue, in the next version of SMART, which is, down the line, but we're going to continue building in a lot more flexibility and customization. So you're able to record other data other than the sort of station team mandate that have been required so far. Go ahead. Another cool feature that helps with ease of administration is the employee teams. So when you set up the employee list in SMART, you can attribute people to certain teams. And then when you enter those data, or excuse me, those employee members into mobile, you can do that via teams. And you can see in the illustration here, we put 3 of the employees into the Bravo team. This is really useful if let's say you have 2 different communities, community A and community B, and they each have 50 people, and you want to quickly put those people onto a mobile device, put the package onto a mobile device. If you set that all up in the employee list, you don't have to then individually click each person and say, put this person on the mobile device. You can just select the team and it'll put all 50 people over. So again, this is just a little thing that helps with those administering the database. It helps to make it a little bit simpler to organize data. And there's a note here, this is distinct from the team patrol attribute. So these are a way of grouping employees or patrol members in the field. It's not, it's different from the team patrol attribute, which is something that you can query on separately. Okay. Oh, yep. So there's also now the ability for certain attributes or for attributes in the data model, you can use regular expression validation. This is, some of you might have heard this is called like regex. This can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be, but it's a way to force data to be entered in a way that is consistent. And so, for example, the instance in the image here is going to enforce numbers being added in a way that follows a US-based phone number. So 3 numbers dash 3 numbers dash 4 numbers. Right? You could also enforce certain things like what is the first initial, then the surname. Include an alphanumeric string without spaces, so something like an ID number, right? This can be as flexible as you want it to be. The ability to do this is now in SMART. You'll see I've linked to where it is in the training manual, but I've also linked to, there's an online guide for regex expressions. I'd recommend if you're interested in doing this, and this is especially important if you are interested in collecting things like an ID number or a phone number or an address or something that's going to be consistent all the time and you want it to be consistent. You can go online and look up regex expressions, and there's a lot of guidance about how to set that up on your own for whatever your context is. Go ahead. And this is kind of touches on the few things I've been explaining in the last few slides. The ability to use to put the configurable model onto a mobile device. This is all now part of the mobile package. So what happens is you configure the package in desktop, and you can see in the illustrations here or in the animation here, it's going through all the different configurations. You can set specific configurations for the model, for the metadata that you're going to collect. You're going to set the base map. You're going to decide whether or not you're going to send it to connect, whether other particular alerts. The desktop will package all that up and create effectively like a zipped file that is the patrol package. And then you can, export that to connect. You can export that to a device, directly to a device on a cable, or you can export it to your computer if you're going to use it on, there's a mobile simulator, or if you want to just have it on your computer. What is really great about this is you have this ability to create the mobile base map, right? The offline base map for SMART. And that can be a really big file because it's going to generate lots of detailed map layers. But once you've done that, as long as you're not making changes between each different device, you can then create the file and then export it to 50 devices with just put your cable in, export, put your cable in, export. The first time it'll take a while, but then it makes it a lot easier to continue to export. You're not regenerating the package every single time. So, I'm sure some of you have already seen this in the field, those of you that were doing the managed release, but, as somebody who's done this and set it up on tens of devices at a time, this is a really cool feature and it makes life a lot easier. Okay, go ahead. Another cool feature, there's the ability to do conditional data entry. In the configurable model, you'll see there's an option, you can see it here where I've pulled the drop down for enabled custom always, never, or custom. So always means the attribute will always be there. Never means it will never show up. So you could, for instance, if you're recording, I don't know, if you're recording an elephant and you wanted to, I don't know, you had something about some aspect of the elephant that was always relevant, right? That you could say never, and it would skip it. My mind is blanking on these now. I've set up several of these, and I can't recall them. So, but what you can do is you can basically set it so if you want to skip over data that is relevant, and record an attribute, you can set a default value, and then skip over it so people don't accidentally put it in. Or you can do this custom feature, which you can then configure specifically when it's going to show up. And so in the animation that you see below, the option there is if you choose incident in a conservancy, if you choose no, then you don't get prompted to enter the conservancy name, right? But if you choose yes, an incident in conservancy, then you're going to be asked to enter the conservancy name. And so what that does is it allows you to streamline data collection, minimize potential data entry errors, and hopefully make it a little bit easier for people collecting data in the field. And again, this can be as simple or as difficult as or as complicated as you'd like it. And there's a link there to the page in the technical manual. Go ahead. You can also capture signatures. This is one of the things that is kind of hard to convey the various steps to make it happen, but I've tried to do that in the animations here. What you do on the desktop is you can turn signatures on, and then in the configurable model you can say when they're going to be used or when they should be collected. And then in the animation for the mobile device, you can see where I would go and take those signatures. And so basically what you can do in the field, you can collect just like, on a pad or something. If you're signing your signature at the bank, you can do that same feature on the mobile device, and you can pull that into desktop into reports. So the example that I've given here, and hopefully you guys can see the animations, they seem to have paused on my end. But what I've done is I've configured the signature on desktop. And then the smaller animation is showing you what that looks like on the mobile device. And then the screenshot where it says signature officer and signature complainant, that's what, they're not the exact same signatures, but that's what it looks like in the reports that I've set up. So it's set it up in desktop, it's collected on mobile, and then I pull those directly into reports using the dynamic images feature, which I think is the next slide. Yep, next slide. Yep, there you go. So this is another one that's a bit complicated to show in an animation. But what you can do now, which is really cool, is you can bring images dynamically into a report. In the past, you've had to manually add images to reports, and this is really simplifies the process. So in the use case that I was just showing you, that's human wildlife conflict monitoring system that we had set up, and in that case. In that case, investigators are going to go out and they're going to record a lot of information. They're going to take several photos in the field. And then when they run the report, it's an incident report. So it's just pulling information from that one incident. And the report is run in a way that it's just going to dump all of the photos that are taken into this table that you see in the bottom left. Now, this is a sample one. Those are red wolves from the North Carolina Zoo. But what we've set up in the report is you don't have to manually add those. It just says dump all images from the incident into the report, and so you get both the signatures, which are captured in the field, and every image that's captured in the field will automatically be pulled into the report and dropped into the specific places in the report when you run it. So this is a really big improvement on the use of photographs and the inclusion of relevant photographs in reports. And this is yet another spot where, in the next year or so, we're really going to try to improve that and expand upon these features. So you can, for instance, if you want to configure an attribute to be every time you take a photo of a national ID card, for instance, and you want to pull that into a report, you can pull that directly into a report into a specific spot. So this is a big step forward for us, and it's one that's going to continue improving. So we're really excited about this. Okay. So just a couple more features. There's some night patrol changes. You can read about all these, on the website. There's a little bit more detail on these, but there's the night patrol includes the ability for SMART to be able to better differentiate a night patrol. So when patrols span the midnight, it won't break it up into separate days. You can set tokenized IDs, so you can configure patrol IDs or incident IDs specific to certain metadata. We have removed the intelligence plugin. There are group bys in the all data queries, which you should check out. You can set custom track settings for the different transport types. In desktop, we have a link to the Smart Forum and to support. You can customize decimal displays. You can also query by last modified. And there are drop downs for custom report parameters. And yes, you can do the batch icon importing and exporting like Julian showed earlier. I think that's it. And I'm just quickly ran through those because I know we're over time, but all of this stuff you can find in the new features list online, as well as in the technical manual and in the various training manuals that we have online. I think that's it.
Great. Thanks so much, Julian and Drew. That was great. Fantastic overview. I love the animations. We will post all the slides in the Smart Community Forum. So we're a couple of minutes over. So let's go over to Alex to talk about Smart Mobile. Thank you.
Hi guys, yeah, good evening everyone from Phnom Penh, Cambodia. It's nice to see so many people from this part of the world joining. Thanks for spending your evening with us. So my name is Alex Wyatt. I work for WWF's Wildlife Crime Program, and I support implementation across the world on smart sites. I also work closely with the lovely partnership team that you've been introduced to today, including on the smart mobile development as part of the Patrol task force. So I'll be talking to you a little bit about our data collection app, Smart Mobile, which has been mentioned already. So just for those of you who might not have used it before, what is Smart Mobile? If you've been using Smart for a while, you may be familiar with it. It was made available in Smart version 6, in addition to previous data collection companion app, Cyber Tracker. But Smart Mobile is now our leading data collection tool, specifically designed for Smart, which differentiates it from Cyber Tracker, which is a standalone application from the same developer. This app allows us to use the specificity of Smart Mobile instead of Cyber Tracker allows us to create seamless functionality with Smart. So the tool is designed to leverage smartphones to enable georeferenced field data, observations, photos, and other data to be captured quickly and easily using a single interface on one device. And we also have a slightly different version of the tool called Smart Collect. That one is new to Smart 7, more on this later. And as Drew mentioned, this can work both offline and online, and allows users to access and utilize an unlimited number of pre-designed data forms. As mentioned, it also supports any language and supports the use of icons as well as or instead of written language. And the whole purpose of Smart is to make field data collection as efficient and as effective as possible and reduce the need for time-consuming manual data entry, which we were limited to in older versions of Smart. So this is a quick snapshot of how Smart Mobile works, as you've seen in some of the animations already. First, you go ahead and design your data collection forms in the Smart software. This could be your full data model or a subset of your data model, but just a few specific categories and attributes. This depends on the field team's needs. I'll be referring to these as configured or configurable models throughout. Then you export your forms to Smart Mobile, the application which you can download from the app stores, and you can export using various different mechanisms. And then you use these forms to collect observational georeference data and other field-based data. And then import them, again, via a number of different mechanisms, online or offline, to your Smart database. So I won't talk too much about this. This has already been touched on by Drew. But these are some of the new features in Smart 7, the ability to use different package types. As was mentioned earlier, SMART is being used for much more than just patrol data. So we now have a bunch of different types of packages that you can use your pre-configured forms in. These can be patrols or independent incidents. It can be ecological surveys and Smart Collect. And again, I'll come back to that later. Now, for Connect users, you'll be happy to know that there is no longer any requirement to manually export your configured models via a cabled connection. You can now simply upload your mobile packages to your Smart Connect server. And here you can see on my Connect server, a list of the different mobile packages which are stored here for use, which can be downloaded at any time. And you can see the different types of packages, incident packages, patrol packages, public and private, which we'll talk about in a moment. We also now have the ability in Smart 7, as mentioned, to design specific patrol routes. So we saw how to do that in desktop here. So I'll skip ahead and you'll see that in the app in just a moment. But just to mention that you don't, again, have to do this manually via cables. You can do this with Connect. You upload your routes that you've designed in to the server, and then you can literally make it available to the patrol team that same day, even if you're many miles away. We've also now in Smart Desktop, as mentioned, added the ability to group employees by teams. So I'll come on to this and how this looks in the app in just a moment. Now, what we haven't mentioned yet is the new custom track timer. So one of the limitations that many sites have had and do have with the use of Smart Mobile can be device battery life and usually a lack of available power sources, be it outlets or power banks. And a battery drain can sometimes be attributed to the device's attempt to obtain a track timer very frequently. And in previous versions of mobile, you were able to specify how frequently the device obtained this track information. However, for teams conducting a mix of vehicle and foot patrols, getting this time interval right was tricky. Vehicles, of course, usually move faster than people. Thus, you need a more frequent track timer to get good track data. We've now addressed this issue by allowing users to select specific track timers for specific transport types. For example, if I switch from a motorcycle patrol to a foot patrol, my package will automatically adjust the track timer and reduce the frequency of track data, thus saving battery life and keeping the track data consistent. As Drew mentioned, we've added the ability to record signatures and distance and bearing and observers. This is all being collected in the app, and I'll show you what that looks like in the application in just a moment. And again, we've used the custom patrol attributes, which Drew has mentioned as well. This, of course, impacts Smart Mobile. Any attribute that you design in Smart Desktop will become available in Smart Mobile, so you can use this when you start your patrol, or so you can then import the data associated with those attributes and use that for analysis down the line. So, as we mentioned already, we have different package types, and in Smart 6, we were able to use incident packages as part of a patrol, but now we have incident packages as a standalone thing. So many sites don't use patrols, traditional patrols. You want to record as independent incidents. We now have support for that in Smart. And the way this works is you import after you've collected your data on mobile as an incident. You import it, it's viewable here as we saw earlier. You can also export that directly as a report. So this has just been collected on mobile and then immediately imported, and then I can click one button and I have a report of this particular incident. So now onto the app itself, as opposed to the desktop features that are related to the app. So as I mentioned, with Smart Connect, we've got some additional functionality that makes life a little bit easier. So we now have the ability to remotely download packages for Smart Connect users. So as I mentioned, you can upload your models to the Smart Connect server, and then the Smart Mobile user can then simply open the app, select Smart Connect on the app, enter their user credentials, and download the data collection package directly from the server. This means that if you want to change a package at any time, You can do that remotely. You don't have to run around collecting devices and plugging them in to your computer. Again, this is only functional with Smart Connect. Again, Drew already mentioned this one. So this is conditional data entry. So this was included, as we mentioned, to simplify data entry, removing the visibility of certain data categories that are irrelevant according to the specific observation, which makes life a little bit easier for the data collector. And Smart Mobile now also supports the use of manual GPS entry, meaning you no longer are solely reliant on the GPS of the device for inputting location information, which is often an issue. If you can't get a signal, it gets stuck. So this is no longer an issue. So what we can do here is you can select the location manually via long pressing on a map or adding specific coordinates into the app itself. So as with other features, this can be toggled on and off by the admin. You don't have to make this feature available if you don't want to. So this can be useful for also for inputting observations after the fact. So this is, as we mentioned, we have the ability to record distance varying, observer names and signatures. And this is how it looks in the app. I think we saw this already. And that will be imported into Smart as an attachment after collecting it in the field. Now, we also have the ability to use multi-records now in Smart Mobile, i.e. multiple records within the same observation. For example, if you come across two people in the field and you speak to both of them and you want to record information of both of them, one observation you can record the number of people was spoken to was 2, and then proceed to enter the information for person 1 and then enter the information for person 2 without having to go back and make a separate observation. In this case, you can see on my screen, I'm recording an incident of wildlife trade, which often includes multiple individuals or species being exploited at a single location. So the trade is happening at a single point and is a single incident, but I need to record information for multiple species. So on the far right, you can see my observation includes 2 records. I saw a reptile and a bird on sale at a pet store, and this is how it appears. And you can just see that incident, we have 2 records within the same observation. As was touched on previously, you can now export your base maps directly to Smart Mobile, reducing the reliance on online map layers and allowing you to export specific layers such as grids, which can be important for your data collection. And as mentioned before, you can export your patrol routes and your targets directly to the app. You can do that manually or via Smart Connect, and this is how it appears. So you just click on the mapping interface in mobile, and you'll be able to see your patrol routes and targets. We've also added the ability to view your patrol statistics, so you can see a summary of your patrol activities whilst on patrol, which is nice for the patrol teams. And we've expanded the attachments to include voice records and other file types. We've also added the ability to use QR scans to observations, as well as the ability to, in Smart Mobile, to link your packages to a QR code, allowing a data collector to scan a QR code, which will then trigger Smart Mobile and installs the package linked to the specific QR code. Just wanted to show a quick snapshot of the icon library. We've expanded this massively in Smart 7. As Drew mentioned, we have now 1,000 different icons, which makes it easier to design your forms and field teams to use Smart Mobile. And of course, you can use your custom icons as well. And now just a few more. I didn't have time to make screenshots for all of these, but one additional new feature is the text search feature. So if you have a long list of species or a long list of employees, you no longer have to scroll through. You can just search for the specific species or person or whatever it is. We've added a number pad, which makes adding numerical data a lot easier. We've also added the ability for data recovery in Smart Mobile, which exports all of the data to a JSON file. Even if you're connected to a server, you can then recover this using a USB cable. Validability for waypoint labeling. The waypoint ID column in the database has changed from numeric ID to a string, which means all waypoint IDs can be strings. So your patrols, your surveys, incidents, and you can decide what this string is. Also location-specific units, depending on your location. And we've added the ability to edit observations in Smart Mobile after you've collected the observation. Previously, this was available offline. You could go back and edit an observation that's been previously made. Before, it was difficult to do this with Smart Connect, but now we've added the ability to do modifications before exporting the data to the server. So now, as I mentioned, I promised I would talk a little bit about Smart Collect. This is a new concept we've introduced with Smart 7. And Smart Collect, it uses the same application as Smart Mobile. So you only need to download the same application from the App Store. This concept has been developed for remote data collection, such as citizen science projects or other data collection activities happening in more remote locations or spread over large areas. So Smart Collect provides users with the ability to make their data collection packages publicly available or widely available, so users can simply download them. So for example, I could set up a marine turtle data collection database sat in Australia, publish my packages online, and encourage people or partners or colleagues to collect data for me around the world, sending data to my specific Smart database. Of course, this requires the use of Smart Connect. So for those interested in learning more about these new features or Smart Mobile in general, I'd point you towards the newly released Smart Mobile Manual, which is available on the Smart website. And of course, we're open for questions and we're happy to welcome you to the community forum as well. So that's it for Smart Mobile.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Alex. That was great. Okay, we are just 5 minutes over, so let's go straight to Smart Connect and over to Oliver and Tony. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Tony Lynham, and I work for the Wildlife Conservation Society in the Global Conservation Technology team. And I'm joining you from Zanzibar. And hello to everyone who's joining the webinar from East Africa. And I'm joined by my colleague, Oliver Adolf, who is in Germany. And we're going to present to you about Smart Connect. So one of the aspects of using Smart is that we need to get data from the field to the manager's desk and back as soon as possible. And in the past, that task was made difficult because we had people in the field and the people in the office often separated by hundreds or even thousands of kilometers. And getting the data required either emailing or moving the data physically between the device and the database. So we designed Smart Connect to expedite that process. And so Smart Connect is essentially a data distribution hub for moving data from the field to the desktop, where it can be analyzed and reported, and then decisions made by managers, and then those decisions moved back to the field. So essentially, Smart Connect allows users in the field who are using various different devices, using Smart Mobile, Smart Collect, to collect their data and to send it into a central repository from where it is then distributed to the desktop copies of the database. And this allows for data to be looked at by managers, to be analyzed, and for reporting to be done, and for alerts to be triggered that tell the manager what is happening in the field. Alerts about things that are happening, such as illegal activity, poaching, intrusions into protected areas, or observations of rare species. And it also allows managers to be reporting data across multiple conservation areas. And so as a tool for distributing data, Smart Connect is really what you want to have if you've got a network of conservation areas or protected areas and you want to move information quickly between those places. So I'm going to hand over to Oliver, who's going to lead us through the rest of the presentation. Oliver?
Thank you, Tony. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. I'm sitting now here close to Munich in Germany. So I'm really in the white spot of smart at the moment. So we have no smart, or I don't know of any smart installation in Germany, but I hope that it might change. So Africa and the rest of the world is way ahead of Europe, but hopefully we can change that. So Smart Connect, as Tony told us, is really an important part of the whole software stack here, the whole setup we can provide for all of you. It is actually the we can say data hub, or the distribution point for the data that's coming in from the field, and also the packages, so the petrol packages and everything back to the phones out there. So it's an important part of the whole system. It helps you a lot to automate many of the tasks you have done before, for example, uploading these packages to the phones, updating the packages on the phones, as long as the phone has an internet connection. That's very simple. That might not always be the case. The Smart team actually has created Smart Connect a few years ago and updated it constantly with the whole Smart Desktop. It's always connected to the version of Smart Desktop, so there's a strong relationship between both. The technology here used is actually pretty common in the internet. You have what it's called an Apache Tomcat web service, which is an open source platform from the Apache community. The data is stored in a Postgres SQL database and in the local file system of the Smart Connect server. It provides, or the actual communication with the rest of the world. So with the phones and with Smart Desktop is going over what it's called the REST API. That makes it a lot easier to integrate it into other services or server environments, like, for example, EarthRanger. And we will see, for example, in the next talk, an integration using this kind of interface here. In general, you can set it up on-premise, so in your local office, either on a Windows server or a Linux server, or even on a Mac, or you can request, or you can get it up and running in the cloud, Amazon, Microsoft Azure, or wherever you want. As long as you have a virtual machine available, you can set it up. Or the easiest way, you go to the Smart Partnership and ask for a free service that is actually run by the partnership here and maintained by the partnership, because you always have to keep in mind that having your own server means you have to administer it, you have to do the maintenance, put in all the patches, look after new versions and everything. This is sometimes a troublesome work. You have to really think about if you have the capacity in your local organization. If you are not having that capacity available, then you can come to the Smart Partnership, and we can provide a hosted environment for your server here. So please, the next slide, Tony. Yeah. So now I'm going to some of the new features of Smart Connect. I don't want to go into all the old features because they are not that they're not that different to what you see most of the time on Smart Desktop. What we now have is a support for desktop base maps, which is really important Before we only had, if you had a report or the alert map, you only had online maps like OpenStreetMaps available. Now you can integrate the desktop map you have created for your conservation area. We have the support for the smart mobile packages, as we have seen by, presented by Alex here. That's incredibly helpful. It's one of the best features I've ever seen here for that. And we have some features for the data queue. That's more about filtering and sorting and previewing the data in the data queue. People who have worked with the data queue know that sometimes you have to really check the data in there. It's sometimes a little bit of a trouble, but here it helps a lot. Please go to the next slide. So here you can see a slide with one of the maps. It's actually the alert map. It's a little bit, yeah, on my screen, not that easy to see, but you see that you have an OpenStreetMap and an overlay of the base map that is in Smart Desktop. So you can put in all your data you have in Smart Desktop in your local maps there and put it on the website too. That's an incredible helpful feature, especially when you look at that data. That is for people, you know, who might not do the processing of the data, but they want to have a quick view of what's going on in your conservation area. For example, when you have what we've seen, poaching incidents, and they are reported through Smart Mobile, you can set up an alert, and it will show up in this map a few seconds after it is uploaded to your server. It's a very helpful feature here. Please go to the next one. Yeah, this is just Alex just showed it to us, so I'm going pretty quick through that here. You have here the view of Smart Connect of the Smart Mobile packages uploaded from desktop to the server, and now and being available on Smart Connect to distribute to the phones. There are two different important configurations or in general settings here. You can have a private or public package. Private means you have to log in before you can download your package. That might be very helpful or important because you have to be concerned a little bit about security all the time. Because if you flag it as public, anybody with Smart Mobile and the right link can download that data from, or not that data, that package from your phone, from your Smart Connect, and that might be an issue you have to think about. This is also, in general, something you have to always keep in mind. Servers facing the internet can be attacked from the outside, and yes, as you might know, there are so many people out there attacking anything that's facing the internet. You also have to be a little bit concerned about that, and you have to keep that in mind regarding how much effort you put in to protect that service here. This is something to consider. Also, there are sometimes regulations by a government that force you to keep the data in country out of data protection issues or something like that. Europe is pretty hard on that one, so I know what I'm talking about. That's when you have to choose the on-premise installation, and you have to avoid then the cloud installation in general. So again, these, we go to the data queue because I see we don't have so much time left. Here in the data queue, this is actually the list of all the data sent up from the smartphones to the smart mobile apps, smartphones to the Smart Connect server, waiting to be processed in the queue. In general, the queue can be as large as thousands of entries, but you should avoid to have maybe more than 10,000 entries in there because it slows down pretty quick because it's a lot of data then in there. So you have to process your data and clean up the data you have already processed here. You can filter here on this view actually by conservation area. If you have more than one conservation area on the server, you can filter by the status. The most important status is what it's called queued, that is ready to be processed, or complete, which means it has been processed. There are different ones in between, like error, but this is described in the administrative guide for that one. You also have a flag for, or a filter for type, but in general, most of the time, if you use Smart Mobile, you will only see what it's called the JSON type of data. That's the type of data that's most of the time used. What is more important is the uploaded date. Oops, you went one too far. The uploaded date here, where you can filter more the data in when it has been uploaded. What you also see is on the right side a preview of the data in here. That is more for the real experts in data management. Believe me, it's a little bit more difficult to figure out what's in there. If you have time and you want to check that out, you can do that. I've done my share of doing that in the recent time, and I'm pretty familiar with all the data that's the data structure actually, where the errors come from. And I will provide in the next days a guide on how to manage that kind of data in the data queue way more easily. So actually, because of the limit of time, that's all I want to tell you about Connect. Thank you very much. And it's great to see all these people here from all around the world. It's wonderful. Thank you very much.
It is great. Thank you so much, Oliver, and thank you so much, Tony. So over to you now, Lidine, to hear about integrations. Lots of questions already in the chat about integrations.
Hi, I'm Li. I'm with the Wildlife Conservation Society, and I'm part of the Smart Integrations Task Force. So we help guide integrations for the Smart suite of tools. I'm excited to give you a very, very quick update on a new integration we have with Global Forest Watch that's only available in Smart 7. So as I'm sure all of you know, Global Forest Watch is an online platform that provides access to near real-time data and tools for monitoring forests. So it's a terrific resource. Using a new data integration platform called Gundy, which is essentially a universal adapter for conservation technologies that was built by and for the conservation community, we have a brand new integration between Global Forest Watch and SMART. You can now send Global Forest Watch alerts about deforestation and fire alerts for your conservation area through Gundy. Smart Connect that Oliver and Tony just talked about, and then view these alerts as independent incidents in your Smart Connect desktop or mobile applications. So providing you with critical information that you can use to help respond to those events and adaptively manage your patrols and conservation activities. So right now, the integration is just available as a managed release to SMART users, and it's currently being scaled by WCS and WWF at sites globally. Just to quickly run through, it's, during its managed release, it's really simple to get started using Global Forest Watch alerts in SMART. You simply need to have SMART Connect 7 set up, access to an administrator account, and have defined and saved your conservation area on the Global Forest Watch platform, and simply submit a request to SMART using the SMART request form for the integration. Then the Gundy support team will take care of the rest. So there will be more integrations to come with SMART 7 through our collaboration, again, and use of Gundy. SMART 7 has the potential to be integrated with any technology, from sensor devices such as camera traps or animal trackers to AI-enabled data analysis services to other software applications without any additional infrastructure. So hundreds of sensors are already supported to send data to applications like SMART. So, as you all know, working in the field, that your time and project resources are often limited. So what we hope with having these flexible Smart 7 integrations enabled and supported by Gundy, you can easily change and mix and match your hardware and software for any given purpose and allow you to take advantage of this continuously evolving technologies. But with the confidence that your tools will continue to work together with your Smart. So in short, if there's an integration that you need with Smart, whether to be sending data, to receive data, come talk to us. Thank you. Over back to you, Monica.
Thank you so much, Lily. That was great. And I'm sure there'll be lots of questions and people interested in the integration. We're really excited about that. Now over to you, Anthony. Would you like me to share my screens?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Is that okay?
I'm not seeing anything. Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Monica.
That's okay.
Cool. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Anthony Dancer, Smart's Chief Capacity Officer. I'll be overseeing the Q&A today. But before we do that, firstly, well, thanks to all the speakers. And then secondly, so as Rich said at the outset, there's a host of other training tools and support that we've been developing in recent years to help people use SMART and to use it effectively. So I'm just going to highlight some of these briefly and where to find them. So first, really important here are all our SMART user manuals. Monica, I think the screen's gone.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I dropped. Zoom crashed for me. I'm going to try again. Is that working?
Yeah, it's back. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, okay. So there's the manuals which are all available on our website, and there's a link at the bottom which we'll also put in the chat. And these manuals, they cover everything from Smart Desktop to mobile to Connect and plugins, advanced reporting, and so on. And the main manual, the technical manual, it's available in multiple languages. And it also lists all the new functionalities in Smart 7 that the speakers have covered today. And then on the next slide, please, Monica. Yeah, so those were the core manuals, but there's a bunch of other resources and guides available on different aspects of SMART. And you'll find those in our resource library. That's also on the website, and we'll put a link to that in the chat too. One of those resources is the competence register, which is worth looking at. If you haven't heard of this, it kind of goes beyond explaining how to use the software to describe like the skills, the knowledge you need to use SMART effectively for conservation, which is really helpful if you yourself are responsible for organizing training courses or hiring staff, things like that. Next, there's also a very active user forum, as I think Rich had said earlier, where you can ask questions of us and the community. And most questions that you might have asked, they've often been asked before, and you can search for the answers there. Next, we also organize regular training events, regional training events in different regions around the world. These are often open to the community and sometimes free to attend. We've got a few events in the planning for this year, so look out for announcements on that, probably mainly via the forum. And then lastly, we are in the process of developing an online learning platform, which is exciting. So if you can't get to a training event, you can work through the courses yourself online for free. We're hoping that the first course will be launched online soon. And then longer term, there'll be different courses for different user types. So data collectors, analysts, managers, trainers, so on. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we've got about 25-30 minutes for questions for everyone to ask of the speakers via the chat. There's a lot of people joining today, so we might not be able to get through every question, but we'll see how we go. I know that people have been asking and answering questions as we've gone along, so we might actually be okay. A couple of things, if you've got a question, please put it in the chat in Zoom. And if you can, please say at the start of the question which of these topics the question relates to, then we can make sure it gets to the right speaker. So desktop, mobile, connect, etc. And I guess speakers, if it's a general question, please feel free to jump in or put your hand up. Okay. think so far most questions have been answered. Please do go ahead and drop your questions in the chat if you've got any.
There's a new question about integration with Power BI.
Yeah, good point. Lee Ling, do you think maybe you could answer that? Can you see the question?
Sure. So first, Power BI, it's not one of our endpoints right now, or but there would be potential if there was a need to kind of have a discussion about whether Power BI would be, a place where you would want to send your smart data and for analysis. I can say that we're also kind of having, there's a range of tools that could be used for analysis and reporting, and we've had some discussions about maybe developing some sort of common ones that we would need for SMART. But I'd suggest if this is a need for you, that you submit a SMART request form and suggest it. That would help us understand the needs of SMART users here.
Yeah, definitely. And in general, Power BI, it's commonly discussed, and it's something we'll be thinking about for future iterations of SMART. So definitely watch this space. Thank you, Leland. Next question, can you provide links to the SMART 7 Advanced Reporting Manual? Yeah, there should be links in the chat coming soon to all the SMART manuals, which are available on the SMART website. Any other questions? Can someone share the use of profiles on the forum, in particular how to use it to track offenders process? Well, there is a profiles manual on the website. Monica, could you, I don't know if we've done it already, but could we post a link to the manuals in the chat?
Yes.
So yes, thank you very much. So yes, so there's a manual to start you off with. We are going to be looking to organize training events around plugins like profiles, hopefully this year.
Yeah, maybe I wonder if someone, either Alex, maybe wants to do a little spiel on profiles quickly. Sorry, Alex, put you on the spot.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, thanks, guys. So yeah, profiles, if you haven't seen it or used it before, is kind of separate to your standard SMART application. It's not the same kind of data that you would normally use. It's an ability to track and record information on entities and records. If we can share the profiles manual, that actually gives a few examples of what you would use profiles for. One of them, as mentioned, can be offender tracking, intelligence stuff, but it could also be tracking individual entities such as individual animals or even species. We can use it for anything really, conflict, infrastructure management. So it's quite different to your regular SMART. So if yeah, I'd recommend having a look at the manual for the observations, for the examples. But yeah, so yeah, if you haven't used it before, it is quite different to regular SMART.
Thanks, Alex. Next question, will there be specific online courses on reports? I find the report part specifically challenging even using manuals. Yes, there won't be a specific course just on reporting, but that will be one of the modules, or there'll be at least one module, if not more, on reporting specifically. Do we have a manual on how R works in SMART? I think we do have some guidance, Monica, is that right?
Yes, we have guidance on R. So again, another plug for everyone to join the SMART community forum. All these manuals, we post them there regularly, any new documentation. So if you join the SMART community forum, I can put the link again, or if you search, you will find it there. For the question on reporting, as we have an advanced reporting manual, and we have a series of videos that are available on our YouTube channel, and we're constantly posting new videos in the community forum as well, like short snippets of how to do this, little tricks and tips for SMART.
Cool, thank you. Next question from Raina. I'm new to SMART. How do I get started with SMART Connect and SMART Mobile for my Echo Guards?
I guess that's quite a general question, but would any of the speakers like to take a stab at that?
I can take that one. The first thing I'd recommend you doing in terms of getting started is to just review the, I mean, I guess the information you saw today, but review the mobile manual and the Connect manual, and just to kind of understand the moving parts. I think what has made SMART successful in a lot of places is the sort of build to the end result, or I guess it's never really an end result. It's always kind of continually evolving. So I'd understand the moving parts and how they would apply in your site. So lots of places want to use Smart Connect, but then realize, hey, there's not really, consistent internet or whatever, technical challenge that would limit that. So I'd understand what the sort of limiting factors are on the ground and read those manuals. And then from there, I think get started with the technical manual. I know myself and several others, that's how we started learning how to use Smart, was just working through the technical manual. And then other than that, I'm not sure where you're based, but there's bound to be a network of practitioners either in your country or in your region. And so it'd be worth chatting with them, seeing if you can learn from their experience, maybe do a site visit. Perhaps they could share copies of their data model or their database with you to build from. So that's what I'd recommend.
Great, thanks, Drew. Next question, I think for Li Ling, about integration. Standard API process, returning JSON formatted data from request with token access. That sounds quite technical. Can you answer that?
Yeah, I'm not quite our developer and engineer, but it is. But if we want automated integrations, you do need API access.
Maybe Oliver can help with that as well.
Yeah, I can help a little bit about that. In general, there is a REST API.
I think we lost Oliver, unless it's just me.
I can't hear him either.
Okay, we'll see if he comes back. Just quickly, there was a question in the chat. Is Smart a paid subscription software? No, it's 100% free, as Monica says. Oliver, are you back?
Yeah, sorry. My Zoom application just crashed. I don't know why. Sometimes this happens. It's also software. So again, there is a REST API in Smart Connect. You can actually access that one if you have a login to that one. It's not 100. There is what it's called YAML file available. If you are familiar with programming these things, then you will know how to figure that out. It's pretty simple, actually. You call, for example, a query and you get the data back, and that's the way how it can be integrated into different, in a way, platforms. You can also do that from Power BI. I'm actually testing on that one here, so that might be something for the future to look forward.
Thanks, Oliver. Next question. As you said, intelligence plugin has been removed. Is there any way to store alerts? Is there any other option to import delimited text or CSV alerts in Smart 7? Any of the speakers want to take that? Alex, could you maybe have a hazard at that?
Sorry, Anthony, I missed that. Can you repeat?
As you said, intelligence plugin has been removed. Is there any other way to store alerts? I.e., is there any other option to import delimited text or CSV alerts in Smart 7?
I'm not sure what we mean by the alerts. In terms of the removal of the intelligence plugin, that has essentially been replaced by profiles, which had the same or similar functionality. So perhaps that would be the place to look for that.
Yeah, I think that's what that means. Thank you, Alex. Next question about desktop. Any new features for data quality control, Julian or Drew?
There's the quality control plugin. I had Smart open and I closed it. To be honest, I can't recall if that was in 6.3. It may have been.
It's
But
not new for Smart 7.
it's not new.
No.
No. Yeah, that's the main feature. Yeah, sorry, it's been so long since I've looked at 6.3. I've kind of lost the thread there. But that is a pretty powerful tool if you're not familiar with it. You can set up velocity based or spatially based quality control measures and run those automatically, and then drill down into the data and do QA/QC that way. I think that's probably your best bet, short of just manual review of the data as it comes in.
Cool, thanks, Drew. There's a question about this presentation from the webinar today, when it'll be available. It should be posted on the forum today. Next question. Can we use Google Map Earth hybrid on base map? Drew, Julian?
So is this for the mapping perspective in Smart? If so, there is a way to access web map servers. If you go to add a new layer, you'll find that there's a WMS option there. And if you've got a link to a web map server, then you can have that in your map. And then when you create a base map, it will carry that data along with it.
I think a couple of good ones have been posted on the forum, so another reason to go to the forum.
Yeah, the thing to remember too, like so some of those are available and that you can use them in desktop, but some of those don't really allow for offline map export because of the the proprietary information. So like Google, I don't know that you can bring Google Map in unless they have a freely available WMS. Like I know for most of the places where we work, where we want to use that, we use OpenStreetMap because it's freely available. The mapping thing is always a little bit tricky because you got to thread the needle between what's freely available, unless you want to pay for a subscription service, and what's really useful on the ground. And so, yeah, I would just look into that. I mean, I think it's one of those things that's always constantly evolving. But OpenStreetMap works pretty well. There's lots of different options for what map layers you want to use in OpenStreetMap, whether it's satellite, hybrid, this sort of standard Google Map-ish looking one. There's also other WMS layers you should check. Like, I know several governments have their own WMS layers that they provide that can be useful as well. So it's definitely worth just kind of doing a deep dive on what's available and what's relevant for your site, and then seeing if that works. But yeah, it is something to remember that not all map services are freely. You might be able to view them, but they might not be able to use them in another platform freely via the API. You might need to have find another option.
Cool, thanks, Drew. Fairly straightforward question about Smart Mobile, Alex. Are we able to have multiple legs in one patrol, e.g. vehicle, boat, and foot?
Yes, yeah, so whilst on patrol, there's an option to click change patrol, and that allows you to switch any metadata, including transport, and that will create a new leg.
Thanks. I'd like details on how to configure the pause extension, how to use it effectively. I've received technical support, but when I run it, it doesn't work. Do you have anyone online with experience in pause?
I can, I think that was a question from Vinny. So 2 things. So I know we didn't cover pause in this webinar. So this is a collaboration with Harvard University using machine learning for project patrol planning. It's available as a beta at the moment with Smart 7. If you're interested in using it, you can ping me and I'll send you a request for a username. If you run into issues, I will also send you a form to explain what the problem is, do screenshots, and that will go to the Harvard team to troubleshoot and get back to you. So just ping me for the form, and yeah, and we'll get back to you to assist you.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. So yeah, as Monica said, it's still in beta testing, so it's not intended for general release yet. Next question. Oliver or Tony, you might be able to answer this. How much disk space is available for a conservation area on Smart Connect server? Is there a limit?
No, there's not really a limit. But you have to keep in mind, if you have very big maps, synchronization or uploading and downloading of the CA can take quite a while, because you will have to transport that over the wire. Depending on your local network or how you are connected to the internet, that is some limiting factor. You can run into timeouts and everything like that. But in general, we don't have a real limit here. You have to keep in mind also that the data queue should not get too big. What I said, a few thousand entries are okay, but if it gets more, you have to delete old entries definitely, or you will have a very sluggish system when you try to access that one.
Oliver, while I've got you, another question on Connect from Ollie. Is there an R package for downloading, analyzing smart data from a Smart Connect API?
No, yeah, that's a more tricky question. I think that's a little bit too much for this webinar. I'm happy to share my experience with that. You can actually download the data from the data queue yourself. I actually have written myself a small application to help me with that. But the general process is always to use Smart Desktop to process the data from the data queue. That does all the tricky stuff for you. When you want to address the API, it's more about getting reports or getting queries done. So extracting data out of Smart Connect by the means of a query or a report. You can automate other things, but they are maybe not that important, like setting up new users and something like that through the API.
Cool, thanks. And Ollie, maybe we can connect on that afterwards. Oliver, sorry, one more question. Any tips to avoid JSON error passing feature information?
Yeah, that is the big one. I'm working actually on a guide to help everyone who is seeing JSON problems. First of all, in general, the most critical thing is only one person at a given time should process the data queue. Don't do that simultaneously with multiple desktops. It just creates trouble. That is always when you process data for one conservation area. If you have multiple conservation areas, multiple people can do that as long as they're restricted to their own conservation area. The other thing is we have minor problems coming from the phones, and that depends on the hardware, that sometimes for tracking data, what it's called the waypoint data, the timestamp might be slightly off a few seconds sometimes. And this is then, if you have the end, you finish the patrol with a certain timestamp, and then another waypoint comes in a few seconds after that. It's not processable at the moment. There are ways to get that done, but this is a little bit too much, and I will have to, I'm writing actually on a document to help you with that one. And another thing is that if you upload packages to the phones and later you delete entries in your data model, and data is coming in with that data that you have previously deleted in your data model, you will face problems processing that data. These are the most common problems I've seen in the last month actually for testing. but there will be a definite guide, and maybe I can provide to experienced users also the application to figure out what's going on in the data queue.
I'll just jump in quickly. Just wanted to add, this is a really good advertisement for joining the community forum, because the problems that people are raising are not problems that are unique to you. Oliver and I just had to talk about this at several of our sites last week. So, you know, the experts on the call are running into the same same issues that you all are running into. And so that's why we like to raise them in the forum, because if it's happening for someone, it's probably happening for somebody else. There's so many users now. So definitely recommend getting on the forum, and then, we can all learn and grow together.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Joe, and thanks, Oliver. Monica, it's not essential, but could you share the presentation again? It's dropped off. Alex, question about Smart Mobile. Is there an option provided in the Smart Mobile package configuration to select all employees in one click without selecting one by one?
No, that isn't there at the moment. It might be, it's not a bad idea to select the whole team, but we can't actually do that at the moment. So that's a good suggestion that we should know.
Yeah, you can, if you've configured everyone to be on one team. So if you have 100 employees and they're all part of, site team, you can click the team and all of them will come on. But you have to do that initially. You have to have them set as all team members in the employee list.
Yeah, thanks. Question about integration with EarthRanger. I don't know if Li-Ling or if Monica you'd be able to answer this. So the question is, I would like to know how we can integrate SMART with EarthRanger to work as one system. I guess the short answer is yes, it's possible. But Monica, can you provide any more detail?
Sure. I think Li-Ling and others might want to jump in as well. So a number of sites use SMART and EarthRanger. I think it depends of what do you mean by integration? Like, what is your flow? Is it data coming from EarthRanger into SMART or the other way around? So we currently have 2 or 3 trial sites where the EarthRanger, SMART, and the Gundi team are looking at a tight integration. But yeah, so we're looking at a lot of options. We don't have something to share yet, but it's pretty close, I think. Li-Ling, what would you say? What would you add to that?
Yeah, I would say it's all in the works. The integration that would send data EarthRanger to SMART, that's very, very close at this point. We're also looking at developing a more kind of integrated, integration within the embedding, a bit of EarthRanger in the SMART platform that we hope will kind of capture a chunk of needs for integrating with SMART. So we work very closely with the EarthRanger team in terms of trying to get all our systems to work together through Gundi. So more soon, very soon.
Cool, thank you. Question that I think I missed. Can I have a quick explanation about Trigger plugin? Is the plugin, can it transfer data from Patrol into an entity in Profile directly? I'm not sure what that question means exactly.
I can take that, Anthony. I think I know what that means. So the profiles, sorry, the triggers plugin allows you. So as I mentioned, profiles kind of sit separately to your regular SMART, uses a different model. The triggers allows you to use your regular model. So if you come across something in the field, such as an individual animal, and you record that in your regular data model, the trigger will then, you can set it up so a trigger creates a specific entity in profiles for you. So that's what the trigger is. So it connects your regular SMART to your profiles, and it creates these entities or records, which you then would go in and populate manually as well.
Cool, thanks, Alex. Question that's been asked and answered in the chat, but I'll repeat it. I'm new to SMART and I wonder if I can use SMART on an iOS device. Yes, you can use SMART Mobile on iOS for users using Connect. But as Drew says, you will need to download Smart Mobile from the App Store on the iOS device. You cannot use the cabled connection that's possible with Android devices, so you have to go to the App Store. Another question that's been answered on the chat. Is it mandatory for new Smart 7 Connect to use the server provided by the Smart team? Will external server allow it to run the same? Oliver, do you think maybe you could answer that? I feel like that's an important question for an answer for people to hear.
There is no restriction. You can run the server anywhere you like. That's really your decision. It is a simple way to get a server up and running through our partnership. But if you have restrictions, or if you have, for example, a local area network that is not connected to the internet, you can set it up in your local office. In the future, I'm not sure when I'm ready, because I'm testing a lot of these things. There will be even what it's called a Docker environment set up that makes setting up a Smart Connect server a matter of minutes. Actually, that's very, very fast, and you can even run it on your local desktop for testing. Please don't do that for production purposes, because you can run the Docker environment without any problem for the production, but use a proper hardware and proper server, not your local machine, which you might crash and you lose all the data. That's important. But as I said, you can set it up anywhere you like.
Thanks, Oliver. And I think the last question, which is good, is running out of time. Oliver, I think this question might be for you as well. Is there a way to limit the access of some data on Smart Connect? For example, if the species is a species of concern and we don't want to share their point data from the overall data, is that possible?
At the moment, I'm not aware of any feature in there, but you can still, if you have control over your login data, you can restrict the access to the server a lot better than you might imagine. Because one of the major issues I've seen with other servers is that most of the users are administrators. You should never do something like that. You can limit really the access to the people who really need a special functionality. For example, all the smart mobile users, if you require the login for them, you can limit that to just the role of uploading the data. That's all. So only these people who are allowed to do that. But at the moment, we don't have a method to specialized kind of permission control on certain data sets yet. But that might be something for Smart 8 to consider.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. There is another question in the chat. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to pass back to Monica. But in the meantime, thank you everyone for all your questions, and particularly thanks to the speakers for answering the questions. And yeah, thanks a lot. Monica, back to you.
Thanks so much, Anthony. Thanks so much, everyone. So remember, please join the community forum. You can ask your questions there. Before I close, I just want to say that there were a couple of questions about upgrade and connect. Just want to say, if you use the Smart Connect server that is hosted by the Smart Partnership, contact us and we will help. We will do the upgrade for you. If you are using Smart 6 Connect, we will provide you with a new server to migrate your data. If you are using a Smart 7.1 Connect, we will upgrade the backend for you. So just contact us, please. Okay, so that was excellent. Thank you so much to all of you amazing speakers and my colleagues that supported the webinar, and all of you guys for joining today. We will share the recording and the presentations later in the community forum. Thanks, everyone.